Hey, welcome to my messy studio. If I asked you, hey, I have an extra pack of Terraskin paper, do you want some? What would you picture? Would you hear the word skin and be worried? Well, fear not. Unlike vellum, see my blog post titled Botanical Illustration of the 1700s, there's no actual skin involved in this incredibly cool paper type. In 2017, I was enrolled in my very first design class at the University of Alberta. We had the task of painting a range of shades using artist quality acrylic paints. These paints were super thick and super expensive, so I was completely new to using them. My professor at the time was a stickler about your projects being literally perfect, docking chunks of marks if a line wasn't perfectly 90 degrees or she could see a wrinkle or fold in your paper. Yikes. I've been painting since before I could hold a paintbrush, and I consider myself very detail-oriented. However, I could not, for the life of me, paint a perfectly straight line with the very thick paint we were supposed to use on a piece of watercolor paper. So I got clever. I drove to my local favorite art and drafting supply store and went straight to the paper counter. I asked for the heaviest paper they had that could hold acrylic paint without bubbling, but be smoother than the bumpy watercolor paper I was using. If it was a movie, the drawer would have had gold sparkles and light coming out of it, as a very nice lady behind the counter introduced me to Terraskin. Terraskin paper is smooth, almost buttery in texture. It's bendable without creasing, but still foldable like regular paper. It's slightly stretchy and thick like watercolor paper. It can be used with any writing or painting tool, such as pencils, pens, markers, watercolor ink, and, of course, acrylic paint. The only tool I haven't loved using with it is pencil crayons, as it's so smooth that the pencil crayon doesn't have enough texture to grip properly. As far as I understand, this is how it's made. Terraskin paper is mostly calcium carbonate, which can be taken from the waste from limestone quarries. Calcium carbonate powder, which is often food quality, can be a byproduct of processing limestone. Quote, the calcium carbonate is collected mainly from waste materials of the building and construction industry, such as marble and limestone scraps, which are then ground down into a fine powder similar to chalk, end quote, as cura. The fine chalk is then mixed with, and I'm going to mess this up, polyolefin resin, which is sometimes also called biopolyolefin. This type of resin is, quote, mainly obtained from oil and natural gas, but can also be derived from renewable resources, example, sugarcane, end quote, Plastics Europe. Once the calcium carbonate and biopolyolefin are mixed, the mixture is heated, pressed into big trays, and rolled onto large sheets. Those sheets are then processed into products like any other paper product. I clearly love this paper. Right now, I have a size A5 blank black hardcover, quote, stone paper notebook from a good company in Sweden. See the description for their website. My sketchbook lives in my backpack at all times, and I've had it for 2 or 3 years now, so it's a little beat up, but has held up wonderfully despite the abuse. Here's some pages within it. Here's some pencil sketching. Some watercolor, some pencil crayon, but like I said earlier, I don't love using pencil crayon on it, and acrylic. Unfortunately, in the past 4 years, it's been tricky to find, in Canada at least. The Terraskin paper from the art and drafting store is no longer available as their supplier from a different country went out of business during COVID. I've seen a few new products start to crop up in the United States, so that has me hopeful. Mostly, I've had to order pre-made sketchbooks out of Terraskin, which are beautiful, but can cost an arm and a leg coming from overseas. So here's my big idea. Why can't we make it here in Canada? Do I really know anything about the mining industry in Canada? No. I'm an artist in Alberta who loves this paper and would like it to be more available and a little cheaper, please. I'd also consider myself to be generally pretty ecologically minded. I love when there's one industry using the scraps of another industry to make something else. See the works cited for info on 6-pack holders made from the scraps of the sugarcane industry, old car tires being turned into railway ties, or a student right here in Alberta from Old College growing mushrooms in beer industry waste. According to my limited research this month, in Canada, quote, limestone accounts for 79% of the total volume and tonnage, end quote, Canadian Encyclopedia, in the mining industry. If this really cool, eco-friendly paper could be made from the waste of an industry that already exists here, then why couldn't we make it here? If you're a person out there who knows how to start an entirely new industry, hit me up. I do great work on branding and packaging design. I will work for the idea credit, free paper for life, and 2% of the company. Thanks for reading. Be curious and kind.